Oh my goodness. Just waking up to this one. Sorry, I had an eyelash there. Didn't realize it until I hit record. Anywho, here we go. We're going to talk about lines and parallel lines, perpendicular lines, just a nice review of all those things. So that gives you the idea. So slope, also known as the rate of change. We want to make sure that we review just a couple things here. So positive slopes, they go up from left to right. Negative slopes are going to go down. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Vertical lines have an undefined slope. Scatter plot, so positive slope means we have a positive correlation. We look at the R value to study if it's strong or weak. Same thing with negative slope, negative correlation. We've had some applications from quite some time, the whole way back to Algebra 1. So some things that you already know is a slope equation. So we do want to subtract the y's. So 8 minus 5, if I start with 8, I have to start with x because it is rise over the run. And that has to be equal to negative 3/4. So we can work with it this way and then cross multiply. So even though you have some background knowledge on all these things, we might give you the question in just a little different format, trying to solve for x. So a couple things we do here to go ahead and finish it up. If that becomes 3, then we could just cross multiply. So I got 12 equals negative 3 times x minus 3. And I hope at this point with your solving skills, you know just to divide by the negative 3. So negative 4 equals x minus 3, and then add the 3 over. So your x value way over here should be negative 1. And we could always plug it back in and make sure that that works out. So standard form or general form, that gets a little bit easier as we go through up to pre-calculus. Now we basically just need x and y on one side. Fractions, decimals, all those things are okay because you understand how to work with them. So that definition develops over the years here. What about point slope? Remember point slope? We want y minus the y value equals the slope times x minus the x value. So we're just going to drop all these things in here. So x and y, so we want y minus 3, negative 2 times x minus negative, so I'm going to make it plus 4. That's all. We just want to drop that information in there. If we're so nice to give you this point, remember that means b is negative 4, because of course this one is talking about slope-intercept form. So we gave you a slope negative 3/4 x, and then minus 4, because this ordered pair was so generous to you, you didn't have to do any extra work for it. All right, general form, so we're going to end up in standard form. There's no way to get in this general or standard form if you just have a couple points. So we need to find the slope. We need to work around that just a little bit. So whichever way you want to start, I may start with 6 and then add the 2. So I do want the y on the top. 1 plus 7, so we get 8 over 8, which means my slope turned out to be 1. And eventually, I was able to convince a lot of my students that point slope is actually easier to work with from this point. So I just want to grab one of these, and I want everything to be positive. So I'm going to work with this y plus 2 equals the slope times x plus 7. And that means I would distribute the 1, so it's x plus 7 equals y plus 2, and then just subtract the 2. So now I'm at y equals x plus 5. Oh my goodness, we're trying to get the general form. I should have moved the x while I was doing it. Okay, so I'll just do that now. So I get negative x plus y equals 5, and that would be okay. All right. Now again, the definition for that general or standard form, it changes through the years. So if that's not a choice on a multiple choice, we would multiply through by a negative. But by the time we get to pre-calc, we just say, get the x and y over there. All right, what do you remember about parallel and perpendicular lines? Parallel lines have the same slope. And perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. Okay. Okay, so more important is if you had a slope of positive 5, that means perpendicular is negative 1/5. If you had negative 2/3, perpendicular is 3 over 2, and now I'll blatantly make that positive as well. So we're going to give you an equation. It's in this general or standard form, and it has to pass through this point, but we want it to be perpendicular to this. The first thing you want to do is identify what the slope is. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and move that 3x over, in a sense, in rewriting what's there, and divide by 2. Don't really care about anything else here except for what's the slope. So what's perpendicular to negative 3/2. So negative 3/2, perpendicular, you'll find positive 2/3. And then we're going to work with the ordered pair. And again, I'm going to work out a point slope form. You're more than welcome to work out a slope intercept form. It's totally up to you. So I got y plus 1 equals 2/3 of x minus 6. So I get 2/3 x minus 4. And we got y plus 1. And we would give the equation a line that's perpendicular. Okay, final answer in general form. I just want to make sure I do all this in one step this time. So I'm going to subtract my 2/3 x and subtract my 1 all at the same time. Final answer, drum roll, right? Negative 2/3 x plus y equals negative 5. Okay. Now keep in mind, if you have to multiply through by 3 just to get rid of fractions, right? Again, that's an evolving definition, but hopefully at this point in pre-calc, we just say x and y on one side. All right, we have some applications. So we're going to give you a car. It depreciates $7,000 in 4 years. Write an equation to give you the value of y in terms of the number of years owned. All right, so we have a couple things we're going to decipher here. And luckily for you car owners, you know that this depreciation isn't going to be linear. But for this application, we're going to deal with it as if it were linear. The car, number of years. So on year 0, we have $18,000, and year 4, we have $7,000. That creates your ordered pairs. So we know we're going to take the difference here, which is 11,000 divided by 4. Somewhere it's going to be negative depending on which way you did it. So we know basically your slope, so y equals negative. When we divide that out, we get 2,750x plus the initial value. The b value was right there, $18,000. So after 8 years, so we're going to plug 8 in here. And we know that this isn't the case linear because that means in 8 years, your car is worth negative $4,000. That's pretty depressing because it's been 8 years. 8 years ago, you spent $18,000. So we know this is going to fall into those exponential ones, but for today, we're going to leave it this way. But based on the equation we came up with up here in the purple, we do want to find out if this were the case, in what year would the car be worth 4,000? So that means that's the ending result, right? So we want 4,000 equals your negative 2,750x plus 1,800. All right, so we're going to subtract our 1,800. We're going to divide by the negative 2,750, and we'll find out the year was 5.09. Okay, so in what year? Well, if it's 5.09, that means we've started the 6th year. So this one's more of a reading type of application dealing with that. All right, using the graphing calculator, we do have page 31 here. You can just kind of read over. Remember a couple things about your graphing calculator, how you change the window. That's going to be in your window button. Normally, you want it to be that standard -10 to +10 for the mins and maxes, and all the scales to be 1. And then what you can do is change those views as you need to. We especially do that in scatter plots. So as we work on any of those in class, I'll give more detail about it. But don't forget, you can also work through the table to find out what you want to see as far as any of these ordered pairs. If you were to drop this equation in here, we could simply just go find out when the y value crossed over the 4,000 to find your answer. Right? So a very powerful tool when you know how to use it correctly. So just squaring the window, a couple of those clerical things that we'll deal with in class. So make sure you bring that along. And if you're not sure, just ask about it while we have some time together. All right, just to below, I do have the homework is the highlighted ones. Cutting back a little bit, you guys seem to know what you're doing, so I'm not going to give you a ton of it, just enough so that it is in your working memory what we're working on right now.